which reminds me about the ridiculous question that every once in a while I ask about meaning and death. So this whole ride ends. You're at the beginning of the ride, but it could end any day. Actually, that's kind of the way human life works.
Mm-hmm.
You could die today. You can die tomorrow. Do you think about your mortality? Do you think about death? Do you meditate on it? And in that context, as the creative, but a pragmatist too, as running a startup, what do you think is the meaning of this whole thing?
Yeah, so on mortality, right? About 4 years ago now, I was excited to go to Yale. I was playing 6 hours of squash a day, which squash is a sport I love so much, and I was really getting a lot better, and I was even thinking I could maybe walk onto the Yale team. And I woke up one day, I felt really, really sick. I went and I decided not to go to squash that day. And I know, I wanted to, I almost did.
Yeah.
And you'll see how this story turns out. So you'll decide if I made the right choice. I decided not to go squash today, and I decided to get my driver's license, or I had to get my driver's license because I wanted to get driver's license before it shows how young I am, before I went off to college, because otherwise I might never get it. And I'm going back, and I successfully got my driver's license, for Hashem. And I go back to my house, and I decided I don't want to drive back because I just feel so sick. Like, things are spinning. I have the worst headache. I come home, I run back right into my bed and feeling really sick, to the point where I even asked my mom, who is a doctor. I'm like, should I go to the hospital? And she's like, you can just wait it out. I'm sure it'll get better. You're a young, healthy
I
guy.
like your mom.
Yeah. And then at one point I look at my arms, and they're covered in this red splotchy stuff.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I'm like, Mom, I think, and she's like, yeah, we have to go. And so I go there, and they're like, you have scarlet fever. And they're like, there's nothing we can do. You should probably just go back home. So I go back home. 6 hours later, I wake up in the morning. They'd let me out at 3 a.m. I come home in the morning, and I feel this like a spear through my chest. And I never felt anything like it. And it was very disconcerting when you have because we're all used to different sorts of pain, right? Yeah. And that was the sort of pain I never felt before. Especially as an athlete, you're used to feeling pain. So I tell my parents, and immediately we hop back in the car. We go up to the same hospital I was at 6 hours ago. And they initially didn't want to let me in, and I was like, I have chest pain. They're like, oh, come in, because they're like, you're a healthy guy, wait your turn. Yeah. I'm like, no, you don't understand. I have a pain in my chest. And then they let me in. They start doing tests on me. They put something in my back, which is really scary. It's a huge needle. And I'm smiling because it's one of the ways I reduce stress, I guess, or deal with this sort of thing and make light of it. But know that, it was definitely very scary in the moment. Shocking and scary. And they go and they do a bunch of tests, and they determined that a virus attacked my heart, and I had myocarditis and pericarditis. And they said I had maybe 25 to 35% chance at one point of dying. And so I'm sitting in they admit me into the hospital. I'm in my bed for about 3 weeks. And I'm just standing there, and I had this moment also that I remember very specifically, where I was in so much pain that I was crying, not out of emotional standpoint, but actually just purely out of the pain itself. I could feel my heart in my chest, and when I leaned back, I felt it touch my rib cage and feel horrible. So I couldn't go to sleep and lean back. I had to lean forward all throughout the night, right? And I'm feeling my chest. I'm feeling this terrible pain in my chest, and I'm crying unstoppably. And I mean, also maybe I should mention that at the time, I was someone who refused to take in anything into my body that wasn't natural. Yeah. And so a lot of the time, I tried to be unmedicated. Eventually, I didn't allow them to add a little medication into my body, but there's just so much uncertainty and pain. And the first time I had to come to terms with mortality.
First of all, I think you still should have gone play squash. I mean, come on.
I mean, yeah.
I thought you were serious about this. you still carry that with you? Sort of, there is power to realizing the ride can end, right?
Suddenly.
Very suddenly, yeah, and painfully. And, it has pragmatic application to like what trajectories you take through life, right?
Something else that is worth noting is that I, for the next year, couldn't walk to my classes. So I get to Yale, they put me in a medical single alone, and I have to get shuttled to all my classes. I had to ask a few professors to even move classes so I could actually get there. I can't I can't lift my book bags. I can't walk upstairs. I spent like 12 hours a day in my dorm room, just like staring at the walls. And more than that, all this like, I got to watch my body like deteriorate and like the muscle like fall off of it because I was taking these pills and they're kind of catabolic. And for an 18-year-old, I mean, I think every 18-year-old has feelings about their body, man or woman. And, just seeing this, it's like you're watching sort of death transpire. And you're also very fatigued because your heart's not at peak condition. And you're thinking about the future. And a lot of the things you enjoy have kind of been stripped away from you. And I took up a meditation practice, like started with like 5 minutes a day. At my peak, I was at like 40 minutes a day, kept it up consistently for about 2 years. And I started thinking about like, what do I want to do? And like, what do I care about? And to get to your point, I think you were asking like, how does this carry forward, right? I think I realized that, there's an end, and I realized that there are things I believe and things that I believe that might not be so overtly popular, but that I truly think make the world a better place. And in spite of, and then basically, if my conditions provided, I wanted to do something that would make me feel sort of whole in that way.
Yeah, I mean, that's an amazing journey to take that time and to come out on the other end. No, I mean, that's amazing. I did not realize like that there was a long-term struggle. I think that's, in the end, if you do succeed, will have a profound positive impact, because struggle is ultimately like humbling, but also empowering. So I'm glad to see that. But from the perspective of the creative, the other ridiculous question about meaning, do you think about this kind of stuff? Is that the meaning of life for you, the meaning of life for us, descendants of apes in general?
The first thing I'd like to say is that I think part of like when we talk about the meaning of life, the part of it is the fact that we get to struggle with this question and we get to do it together for a long time. And sometimes I think it's accepting that there's no meaning at all. And sometimes I think it's accepting that, or even just parsing the phrase and thinking about the meaning of life. I'm very young. Again, I hope that anything I say now is going to be very different in the future, because I think life has so many meanings that it'll be crazy to see what I think in 20 years about the meaning of life. And
Ryan from the future, cut him some slack.
Please do. Perspective. Having said that, I think part of what brings meaning to my life is things like this, where we think about these things with people who are really, really, really on the ball, and we get to connect with these people. That certainly brings meaning to my life, human connection.
Yeah, this conversation is just another like echo of the thing you're trying to create in the digital space, right?
Yes.
I mean, that's the same kind of magic. From what I understand about what you're trying to create, is the same reason I fell in love with the long form podcasting. Like, as a fan, that's why I listen to long form podcasts. Is there something deeply human and genuine about the interchange through voice? But I do think that connection through text can be even more powerful. Like, I think about letters. I still write letters to Russia You know, there's something powerful in letters. When you put a lot of yourself in the words you say, in the words you write, that's powerful. You can really communicate not just the actual semantic meaning of the words, but like a lot of who you are through those words, and create real connection. So I hope you succeed there. And listen, Ryan, I think this was an incredible conversation. I'm glad that people like you are fighting the good fight for bringing out the best in human nature in the digital space. I think that's a battleground where the good will win, like love will win. And I'm glad you're creating technology that does just that. So thank you so much for wasting all your time, for coming down. I can't wait to see what you do in the future. Thanks for talking today.
Thank you for having me.
Bam.
How many finger guns have you gotten at the end of the podcast?
0.
2 now.